God. What page is it? Oh, looks like we went live. Shoot. Trying to get to page 189. Okay. Sorry, you guys. I know we just went live and my Kindle wasn't on the right page. In preparation for this broadcast, go to page 189. I'm almost there. Okay. Okay, so we're live. Welcome to Love and Money Secrets TV. I'm your host, Dame Lillian Walker, and I'm so happy and excited to be sharing with you Breaking the Habit of Becoming Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And so where we left off yesterday, Chapter 8, Part 2, page 189, we had just talked about the Theta State. And I was talking about how you can get yourself into Theta State through using the breath, which neuroscientists have now, there's many papers that have been published. And for those of you who have followed me on Facebook, you'll see that I have posted some of the papers that the scientists have actually disclosed that your breath is the remote control. Make no mistakes. You have a remote control to your brain, and it's through the breath. The breath is what you use to command your brain, and it is what opens up the doors and the gateways to the higher dimensions. So one of the first things you want to do, and one of the first things that Dr. Joe teaches us to do is, as he's teaching us these different meditative practices, he shows us not only how to become aware of the Theta State, but he induces us getting into the Theta State through different means. One of them is the breath. From previous readings, you will remember and recall that he also talked about in not breaking the habit of becoming yourself, but in the first book that we read, which was Becoming Supernatural, he talked about the kaleidoscope and how just viewing the kaleidoscope prior to your watching your mind movie or prior to you engaging in meditation will entrance you into Theta State. So before we go on, I also want to touch upon another thing, because I think a lot of people, they have this notion or this feeling or this thought that it's difficult to get into Theta State, and it's not. It's not this mystical, magical, unusual, only for a select few. No, everybody goes into Theta State every single day. When you first wake up in the morning, you're in Theta State. Before you go to sleep, and when you first fall into that place where you go to sleep, where your mind is still awake, but your body has already fallen asleep, that in fact is the Theta State. And as we know from having read this book and Dr. Joe's first book, Becoming Supernatural, we know that it's melatonin that induces that Theta State. So, and I pulled out, I began to talk the part where we lost internet last night. Again, that's the second time since this whole pandemic has taken place that we've lost internet. First time it happened, we didn't have internet for 2 hours. Luckily, we had already recorded for a couple hours, but it cut off that broadcast. And then last night it happened again. So I apologize for that. Sometimes technology fails, but we got a good amount of content last night. But I left off in talking about the Meuse Headband, which is a device to help you not only to measure the state in which your brain is in terms of being in theta and what have you, but also to get your brain into coherence with your heart so that you stop the mind chatter. And so this is, if you're curious as to what it looks like, it's a headband. This is exactly what it looks like. You put it on, and you're going to want to put it on so that this part of it is around your ears. And right now, I usually put my hair in a ponytail when I put this on. So the bottom line is, this is what the mousse looks like. And actually, you put it in this direction because you want the metal probes that are here, you want it actually touching, the sensors have to touch your forehead in order to measure your brain waves. And so that's basically that. So that's, in case you're curious about the Meuse Headband. I learned about this in Cancun in the monastery. There was a couple guys, actually one guy in my group who actually had that, and he talked about it, and I thought, oh, that sounds nifty. But the bottom line is, you don't really need that. I already knew how to get into theta state from meditating prior, and also from working and coaching with Colette Stryker from the MAP Institute. She's the founder and CEO of the MAP Institute. And one of the things that I love, absolutely adore about Colette, if you don't know who Colette Stryker is, I highly encourage you to get onto Facebook, look for MAP Institute, look for Colette Stryker. She's also on YouTube. She's also on Instagram. She does a lot of incredible performance, high performance, peak performance training with a lot of like the who's who. And for people like you with families like yours and mine throughout the world, not throughout just the United States or North America, but from all over the planet. Originally from France, now lives in Texas, but she travels all over the world doing this. And she has a very precise method where you are able to command your brain, your super consciousness, and you command your super consciousness to give instructions to your subconsciousness in order to effectuate a certain outcome. So what I did when obviously I learned Dr. Joe's meditations and so forth, that's part of the protocol that I implement because I knew how to get into theta state from the work that I did with her. So it was a natural thing to add that to my meditations. And I knew that I needed, in order to move forward with the progress and the healing in my meditations, I needed to, in fact, order my brain to get into theta state. And now having the breathing practices that Dr. Joe Dispenza shares with us, because he has very specific modalities. As you engage more in this work, you're going to learn that there's a certain breath, which I have links for it in my, if you go to the description in this YouTube channel, not only do I have testimonials to people who have actually had these incredible life-changing healings, but I think there's a link for how to do the breath. And at the end of the videos, I typically put how to get into theta state and how to know that you're in theta state, which I think is important for you to recognize the feeling that your body, you'll be aware of a certain feeling and a certain dynamic. So I've talked about it before where for me, I feel kind of like a downshift, kind of like if you've ever driven a stick shift car, it's like that, where all of a sudden you're in the void and it's like a downshift where you feel like everything just goes vroom. And that's my theta state. That's what I feel like when I'm in theta state. And so as you pay attention to those there are little nuances. If you don't pay attention, you don't realize of that change. And then you just trust, once you feel that, you know it, you don't question it. You're like, you acknowledge, I'm in theta, boom. You can move on to the next portion of your meditation. So let's get started here today. So exciting. We are here on chapter 8, part 2, breaking the habit of becoming yourself. So thanks for joining in. Theta. In adults, theta waves emerge in twilight state or lucid state, during which some people find themselves half awake and half asleep. So the conscious mind is awake, like we are right now, while the body is somewhat asleep. This is the state when a hypnotherapist can access the subconscious mind. Pause button. Not only can a hypnotherapist access your subconscious mind, but you are learning, you're actively learning right now how to do the exact same thing. And be aware that this is what commercial advertisers on TV, on YouTube, whatever social media platform, they know how to access your subconscious mind through repetition and through taking advantage of your theta state, that hypnotic state. So now you're going to be empowered to take control of it for yourself, for whatever it is that you want. So in theta, we are more programmable because there is no veil between the conscious and the subconscious mind. Okay, I want to pause real quickly here because one of the things that Dr. Joe did talk about earlier in the book was the fact that as children, when we're first born, we're pretty much asleep the first 6-7 years of our lives. We are in a perpetual state of theta when we're children, where we really don't distinguish any difference between being awake and being asleep. And even when they're awake with their eyes open, their brains are actually in a theta state, which suggests that they're actually asleep with their eyes open. So we've all been in theta state. None of us have ever existed and gotten to this point in life where we didn't get into theta state. And you do it every day. You just do it unconsciously. You haven't paid attention to it. But now you're going to start to pay attention to it. Delta. So for most of us, delta waves are representative of deep sleep. So deep for delta. In this realm, there is very little conscious awareness, and the body is actually, it's repairing and restoring itself. So as this overview demonstrates, when we move into slower brainwave states, we move deeper into the inner world of the subconscious mind. And the reverse is also true as we move into higher brainwave states. So the more we become conscious and attend to the external world. So with repeated practice, these terrains of the mind will begin to become familiar to you, just like anything else you persist at. Anything that you persist at. You will come to notice what each brainwave pattern feels like. So I'm going to stop here because so many of you, I'm not going to include myself anymore in that category because that's not me any longer, but so many of you are completely unaware of what your body and what you're actually feeling. And that, my friends and gems, is part of where your power lies, in your ability, as my great late mentor, he's still my mentor, even though he's graduated from this 3D realm. He's with me all the time. The great Bill Nasby, the bald eagle, would say, it's in your ability to take responsibility for each individual thought and respond with ability. So you're response-abled is how you become responsible. So many of us, we're like, oh, we're so responsible. You pay your bills on time. You show up on time to your appointments. You get your, checking all these check marks and so forth. But we're not that responsible with your thoughts. And you're not that responsible with your feelings. If you're denying your feelings, if you're negating your feelings, if you're suppressing, depressing, repressing, I was doing all three. I was depressing, repressing, and suppressing my emotions. I was bottling down, denying myself if it wasn't a positive, happy, joyous, laughing feeling, I didn't want to have anything to do with it. Part of it was because it was so painful and because I had been conditioned that it was not okay to acknowledge those feelings. And so I had to repress them for years. And then I had to unpack, a lot of energy to unpack. And I had to unlearn that behavior, and I had to relearn what it was like to be how I was originally, like when I was a child. Now, what I also had to be a big girl. I had to be woman enough to take the sensitivity of all the feelings, because part of what made me repress, depress, and suppress all of those emotions was because I was so highly sensitive. So there were a lot of painful things that caused me to have those, more so than probably the average person. I was feeling my own stuff and I was feeling the stuff of others. That could be overwhelming. And then I was being, reprimanded. I was being punished, disciplined, because none of those things, unless it was physical pain, physical pain is a good reason to be sad or, have any of those emotions. But these other things weren't. At least that's what I was conditioned. And so as a result of that, I became the queen of repression, depression, and suppression. And the reason why I'm probably I'm thinking that and I know that part of the reason why I had to go through that is because so many of us on this planet are doing that. I had to go through the entire cycle of unpacking, unbraiding that braid, and then reconciling myself with being okay with feeling all that stuff I didn't want to feel, thinking about and unpacking all of that energy that I didn't want to unpack because it was ugly and it didn't feel good. But it gave me a ton of information. There was a ton of information that had I not had the courage doesn't mean that you don't have fear. You have fear. You feel the fear and you do it anyway. You have courage, but you, with the courage, which means you take heart. That's all courage means. Courage is not fake bravery. Courage means that you allow your heart, in that heart space, you allow your heart to actually feel. You allow your heart to be open and to guide you now. You're not just running around one-legged. You're like, well, what do you mean, Lillian, by running around one-legged? Now you're talking Swahili. I don't get this metaphor, this allegory. Well, what the heck are you doing? I'm so glad that you asked, because I was asking the same questions not too many years ago. I'm like, what do you mean I'm running around one-legged? If you're only using your mind, or let's not even say, I'm not going to call it mind, because I'm going to differentiate your mind. I'm going to separate it from the thoughts that your brain is thinking. So if you're only using the information from your brain and that thought form, you're running around one-legged. One-legged. We know from physics, from basic geometry, from so many of the ancient texts, that you put 3 legs down on the ground, you're not going to topple that over. Chances are, if you have 4 legs, you have a greater chance of toppling over, because all it takes is for one of those legs to be off, and now you're toppling a little bit. But you have 3 legs, make no mistakes. That's why they talk about the triangle being one of the strongest structures in the universe, having a triangle, 3 sides. So you put 3 legs down on the ground. What are the 3 legs in your life? Because, like I said, I was running around one-legged, sometimes 2-legged, but oftentimes one-legged, because I was giving more importance to my intellect, my intelligence, my book knowledge, and the experience that I had from applied book knowledge, and still keeping at bay a lot of the spiritual, even though it was like blaring in my face. It's a lot of fighting with myself that I was doing between my brain and my spiritual side. But then there's the heart, because the heart, as we've learned from here, has its own brain, its own intelligence that actually was formed in the body before your brain, when you were in utero, in your mother's womb. Your heart and your heart brain developed first. In the first 3 months, in the first 12 weeks, that little heart is beating. You can see and you can hear it on an ultrasound. The brain inside that little embryo's head hasn't formed yet, doesn't exist. It's not even a cluster of neurons, not even a cluster of cells. It still hasn't formed yet. That comes much later. So if anything, you can make the decision right now. This is part of the good news. And I'm here to be your cheerleader, simply to encourage you to decide right now, because the most powerful place that you can be is in your present moment right now. This is all that you have. The past is the past. The future hasn't come yet. You can create the future by the decision that you make at this point in time. So right now, you can choose. I don't know what it means. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know how to even get there, but I know that I'm going to choose in this moment. That's what I did. I chose in a moment in time back in 2013. It was 2012. I'm going to live from a heart space with an open heart. And I want to learn to step into that power of living a life where you're in that heart space with an open heart. And how do I show up in the world so that I am in my largest glory, my largest expression and fullest expression of myself. So the truest purpose for which I was brought forth is actually actualized and realized, and I'm able to gift it to the world. And you're already on your way, because if you're watching this video, you're like 80% there. So As this overview demonstrates, when we move into slower brainwave states, we move deeper into the inner world of subconscious mind. The reverse is also true. We move into higher brainwave states. And the more we become conscious and attend to the external world, with repeated practice, of course, these terrains of the mind will begin to become familiar to you. So just like anything else you persist at, you will come to notice what each brainwave pattern feels like, and you'll know when you are analyzing or thinking too much in beta. You'll observe when you are not present because you are swinging from the emotions of the past to trying to anticipate a known future. You'll also sense when you are in alpha or theta, since you'll feel its coherence. In time, you will know when you are there and when you are not. Okay, so he's talking about your being in the awareness of when you're in alpha versus you're in theta. To be quite honest with you, I'm not 100% sure of when I'm in alpha. I know when I'm in beta, like right now, hands down, I'm in beta. I'm fully alert, I'm paying attention, I'm reading. I can feel my hands as I'm moving them, as I'm talking to you. I can feel my mouth, I can feel my voice, my eyes looking into the camera. So I'm in full blown, either mid to high beta, without a shadow of a doubt. Theta, I definitely know what that sensation is of being in theta when, as soon as I close my eyes, I'm already commanding my brain. It's like, okay, guys, this is what we're doing. Brain, do as I say. We're going into theta. I'm doing 3 deep breaths on a count of 3. I order you to be in beta. I order you to be in theta. And boom, it happens every single time. And I don't even wait for the feeling. I assume that it's done and I move on because I know that it's already done. And the same thing will happen to you. As you trust it and you begin to do it, you're going to go, oh my gosh, I'm like, this is pretty cool. I can do 10 breaths and be in theta like that every single time. Yeah, your body's already used to doing it. You do it every day already. Now you're using your remote control. You're choosing to take command of yourself and do it. So it's very exciting. So in time, you will know when you are there and when you are not. In fact, I'm going to say something because I try to practice the breathing, not only during my meditation time when I'm here, but also, I'll be driving and I'll practice sometimes the breathing. And I will notice sometimes that as I'm breathing and I'm driving, because I have conditioned, it's what he talks about in the book about conditioning the body to a new mind. Now my body is conditioned. Oh, she's doing the breath. We need to get ready to go into theta. So I'll be driving, and sometimes as I'm driving, I feel my body starting to shift into theta. I'm like, no, no, no. And so I say, no, no, no. I stop it, and then I stop the breath because I don't want to go into theta when I'm driving. I want to be fully conscious aware. I want my beta brain waves to be on high alert because I'm driving. And the first few times that happened to me, it caught me off guard. And I thought, wow, it's amazing how quickly your body will respond to your new mind because you've conditioned it now. Every time you go into meditation, you go into theta every single time. So every time you do the breath, it's going, okay, it's it becomes like an automatic response now. It's conditioned because you're taking these mechanical actions every single time. So yeah, you can go ahead and practice it in your car, but as soon as you feel that you're going into theta, you stop and you say, nope, no, 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 not going to do there. Just was practicing the breath, just alkalizing my body, just, getting my circulation and getting that, your cerebral spinal fluid to circulate a few more cycles, over those breaths. That's all. Wasn't intending to go into theta. You're still in control. Okay, so next part is figure 8C, a comparison of different brainwave patterns in adults. Gamma, the fastest brainwaves of all. The fastest documented brainwave frequencies are gamma waves, from 40 to 100 hertz. Gamma waves are more compressed and have a smaller amplitude compared to the 4 types of brainwaves I have discussed. So although their cycles per second are similar to high-range beta, there is not an exact correlation between them. Having high amounts of coherent gamma brainwave activity is usually linked to the elevated states of mind, such as happiness, compassion, and even increased awareness, which usually entails a better memory. So, and even increases awareness, which usually entails better memory formation. This is a heightened level of consciousness that people tend to describe as having a transcendent or peak experience. So for our purpose, think of gamma as the side effect of a shift in consciousness. So I have spoken a little bit about my mystical experience on March 22nd. I've had many mystical experiences prior to that, but that was a pretty profound one because I never had one where everything that was revealed that day was just, it was nothing I could have imagined. And I've had obviously other things that have been revealed since then, which have been pretty awesome. But I know that it's the genesis of those things were that particular mystical experience, which is very cool. But one of the things that I learned just, I'd say this year in 2020 is that for those of us who are not sure when we get into that gamma brainwave state, well, when you get into that gamma brainwave state, if you're actually looking at brain scans, and Dr. Joe does show us the brain scans during the 7-day advance, but and you can also see them in the book. But one of the things is, I'm not a neuroscientist. I don't have the advanced training that he does. I'm not a neurologist. And so for me, when I look at beta brain waves on a scan, if I compare high beta and gamma, it is very difficult to distinguish the two. I mean, for the untrained eye, they're pretty close. And I will actually confess to you that even for the trained eye, there are neurologists and neuroscientists who will look at high beta and oftentimes confuse a high beta brainwave state and a full-blown gamma brainwave state. And they can confuse that also with a seizure of some sort. So that being said, what I want to talk to you, because what's relevant to you is, okay, what does it feel like to be in a gamma brainwave state? So first of all, it is a shift from your theta brainwave state, because your theta brainwave state is a very peaceful, placid, serene. It's almost like your conscious awareness it becomes the void that it's in. So it's a very spacious, deep, dark, very plane of existence. However, once you go into that gamma state, you're gone. And I guess that's probably, I'm just now realizing, you could equate gamma with gone. Because when you get into that gamma brainwave state, you're no longer in that first level of the void. You're going, you literally feel yourself being pulled and you're traveling. You don't know where you're going, but you know you're going somewhere. And as you're traveling, for myself, I've actually felt my body tremble or shake or move, and it's involuntary. And when it first happens, you're aware of it in that realm, but you're not really conscious that it's happening in the 3D physical form. And then over time, as it continues, then you become aware. You're like, I think that's happening in both realms, both in the 3D world as well. It's not just here in this mystical place, it's also in the 3D world. And you're cool with it. You just have to decide, you know what, I'm cool with it. I'm not afraid. I'm going to let go. I'm going to surrender, because it's that letting go and surrender that will allow whatever to unpack itself, whatever knowledge to be revealed, whatever downloads of information, whatever packets. Dr. Joe doesn't talk about light codes, but I'm very well aware that you have not only light codes that are downloaded into you, and you also have dimensional overlays that are actually also downloaded into you, and they are activated on an as needed basis. But now you've allowed that to come through you to light you up, and to light you up to provide knowledge, information, all sorts of different things, healings, etc. Okay, so moving on. 3 levels of beta. 3 levels of beta waves govern our waking hours. So since we spend most of our conscious waking day with our attention on the external environment and functioning in beta, let's talk about the 3 levels of these brainwave patterns. This understanding will facilitate moving from beta to alpha and ultimately to theta, the meditative state. Low range beta is defined as relaxed interested attention ranging from 13 to 15 hertz cycles per second. And if you're enjoying reading a book and are familiar with the material, your brain would probably be firing in low beta because you are paying a certain degree of attention without any vigilance. Mid-range beta is produced during focused attention on sustained external stimuli. Learning is a good example. If I were to test you on what you read while enjoying that book in low beta, you would have to perk up a bit. And thus, there would be more neocortical activity, such as analytical thinking. Mid-beta operates anywhere between 16 and 22 hertz. So with mid-range beta, so you've got the low-range beta, and now we're talking about mid-range beta, that's 16 to 22 hertz. With this mid-range beta and even low-range beta to some extent, these frequencies reflect our conscious or our rational thinking and our alertness. So they are a result of the neocortex taking in stimuli from all of the environment around us and all of our senses and assembling, putting together that information into a package to create a level of mind. It's how it's accumulating all this information through all your different senses, the 8 different sensory systems of the body that we've discussed before, and it's now filing it away in the filing cabinet, which is your brain. And any emotional response to that is filed away as an emotion to your body. Because again, Dr. Joe says, thoughts are the language of the brain and emotions are the language of the body. So, as you can imagine, with this focus on what we're seeing, hearing, tasting, feeling, and smelling comes a great deal of complexity and activity from within the brain to produce that level of stimulation. So high beta brainwave state is characterized by a brainwave pattern from 22 to 50 hertz, and high beta patterns are observed during stressful situations where those nasty survival chemicals are produced inside your body. Maintaining this sustained focus in such a high arousal state is not the type of focused attention we use to learn, create, dream, problem solve, or even to heal. In truth, we could say that the brain in high beta is functioning with too much focused concentration. The mind is too amped up and the body is too stimulated to be in any semblance of order. So when you're in high beta, basically wigging out, you're stressed. When you're in high beta, just know for now that you are probably focusing on something too much and it's hard to stop. This is also the level of the mind and the type of brainwave states that you are doing when you have any kind of obsessive compulsive type of thought pattern, any kind of repeated obsessive addictive type of thought process. High beta, a short-term survival mechanism, a long-term source of stress and imbalance. So emergencies always create a considerable need for increased electrical activity in the brain. Nature has gifted us with a fight or flight response to help us to quickly focus in potentially dangerous situations. So the strong physiological arousal of the heart, lungs, and sympathetic nervous system leads to a dramatic change in our psychological states. Our perceptions, behaviors, attitudes, and emotions are all altered. Which of them are altered? All of them. All of them are altered. This type of attention is very, very different from what we normally use. It causes us to act up and act like a revved up animal with a big memory bank. So the scales of attention become tipped toward the external environment. So I want you to think about it. The scales inside of your body, when you're going into high beta and you're in a super aroused state, now everything is tipped towards your external environment, causing an over-focus, an over-vigilance. You're now in a fight or flight mode where all of your energy is drained from your head, from your heart, and it goes to your first, your second, and your third energy center. He says here, causing an over-focused state of mind, anxiety, anger, pain. Anxiety, worry, anger, pain, suffering, frustration, fear, and even competitive states of mind-induced high-range beta. So those beta waves to predominate during a crisis. So in the short term, This serves all organisms well. There's nothing wrong with this narrow, over-focused range of attention. We get the job done because it affords us the ability to accomplish so many things. However, if we remain in emergency mode for too long, high beta knocks us far out of balance because maintaining it requires an immense amount of energy. And because this is the most reactive, unstable, and volatile of all brainwave patterns, when high beta becomes chronic and uncontrolled, the brain gets juiced up beyond the healthy range. So unfortunately, high beta is terribly overutilized by the majority of the population. So we are obsessive or compulsive, insomniac, or chronically fatigued, anxious, or depressed. Pause button here. I want you to pay close attention here. It says we are obsessive or compulsive, insomniac, or chronically fatigued, anxious, or depressed, forcibly pushing in all directions to be all powerful, or hopelessly holding on to our pain to feel utterly powerless, competing to get ahead or victimized by our circumstances. So you can see, feel, and experience here how these are not really not a good, healthy state of being. And it is a misuse of your energy, because you're not supposed to be in fifth gear. If you drive your car at all times at fifth gear and you're always going at 150 miles an hour, you're eventually going to blow your engine out. You will burn it, literally burn it out. Your car was not designed to be in a perpetual fifth gear. There's a reason why you have 5 gears, not 1. And the same thing is for your body. You were not designed to be in a fight or flight holding pattern for days, weeks, months, years on end. And you can see someone who has obsessive compulsive thought patterns to the point where they have anxiety. If you have chronic anxiety, it predisposes you to things like shingles, where, make no mistakes, the reason why you have excessive thoughts, which causes unnecessary stress on the body. Eventually, the manifestation of shingles is just showing you that you're burning a gasket out in your body. And so that is showing you that you need to recondition your body to a new mind to stop those negative thinking patterns for your own benefit, to make you feel good and to prevent further things down the line, because that same conditioning thinking pattern that drains the energy in your body is eventually, it could lead to Alzheimer's, dementia, senility, and other neurological disorders, because neurological disorders are keenly connected to other similar neurological disorders. If you watch the interview that I did with San Sanjuani, you watched the live stream, we'll have the edited version of that up soon. She talks about how, the first manifestation during that terribly stressful time where she was going through her divorce, she lost her business, it was just, everything came crashing down. And then the first symptom she noted was that one morning where she woke up where everything was double. She had double vision. And then she started having other neurological symptoms as well. And she ended up going to the doctor. The doctor diagnosed her with myasthenia gravis. She continued to have other neurological symptoms that were developing. Kidneys, I believe, were also starting to fail. And then she was diagnosed with a second neurological problem. Once you start to have a failing neurological system, it's kind of like a domino effect, where it's like one domino knocks over another domino, unless you stop it, which is what she did. And inside of a very short time period, she was able to put her hands on the steering wheel. She ended up healing herself through these meditations. And she showed us how she was able to restore everything. This happened less than 2 years ago. She's done like a complete 180, from facing this way, she's now facing in the complete opposite direction. She turned her life around for the better and kept it from continuing to spiral downward. And you can do it too. And that's the whole point of all of this. Sustained high beta sends the brain into disorder. That's the bad news. So to put this into perspective, think about the normal functioning of the brain as part of the central nervous system, which controls and coordinates all other systems of the body. So pay close attention here. So to put this into perspective, think about the normal functioning of the brain as part of the central nervous system, the CNS, which controls and coordinates all other systems of the body. It keeps your heart beating, it digests your food, regulates your immune system, maintains your respiratory rate, balances your hormones, controls your metabolism, and eliminates wastes, to name just a few. As long as the mind is coherent and orderly, messages that travel from the brain to the body throughout the spinal cord will produce synchronized signals for a balanced, healthy body. However, many people spend their waking days in a sustained high frequency beta state. They're all like wigged out and stressed out. To them, everything's an emergency. The brain stays constantly on a very fast cycle. It's literally, if you look at the wave states, they're moving at a crazy rate. The brain stays constantly on a very fast cycle, which taxes the entire system. Living in this thin margin of brain waves is like driving a car in first gear while simultaneously stepping on the gas. Oh my gosh, can you imagine the pressure on your engine? You're stuck in first gear, you're pressing, the gas, you're giving the gas, and your car's like, it really needs to go into second, and you're like stuck in first gear. So these people drive through their lives without ever stopping to consider shifting gears into other brain states. Their continual repetition of survival-based thoughts. So I want you to pay attention here. All the working out, all the eating organic food, all the religious practices or other methodical practices that you might do, which are all trying to solve it matter to matter, none of those things will prevent or will help you ultimately heal. So their continual repetition of survival-based thoughts, it's in the thoughts, my friends and gems. That's the good news. It's in your thoughts. It creates feelings of anger, fear, sadness, anxiety, depression, competition, aggression, insecurity, and frustration, among others. People become so caught up in these intoxicating emotions that they try to analyze their problems from within these familiar feelings, which only perpetuates more thoughts over-focused on survival. Pause button. Because think about the negative thoughts that you yourself allow to perpetuate itself by manically watching the news every morning. First thing you wake up and you're having to see what CNN says, whatever, I don't care who your news outlet is, whatever news outlet, you need to see what the government's doing here, not only in this country, but other countries. Are they gonna, heaven forbid, they're gonna have some sort of attack or drop the bomb or whatever mania is going in your head in anticipation, which doesn't benefit you. These are not loving thoughts to entertain as you first wake up in the morning. And yet there are millions of people that's their MO. First thing they wake up, they got to get their fix because they have to confirm their addiction to the stress, to the anxiety, the justification for being the woe is me victim, because all those things are outside of you and you're a victim to them. So only you can choose to, I'm not going to do that. No, I don't need to know every tweet, whoever in the government or the mainstream media or on the Facebook feeds or wherever it is that you go, you get your information. You can choose to have a more pleasant, positive, better feeling experience first thing in the morning. But you got to choose it. Nobody can choose it for you. It's like nourishment. You have to nourish your brain just as you nourish your body. No one can chew and swallow your food for you. We can prep you a great, beautiful, super nutritious meal and place it before you. We can even feed it to you, but we can't chew it for you. We can't swallow it for you. We can't digest it for you. That, my friends and gems, you have to do for yourself. And the same thing is this. You need to take in, you need to bring this to the inside of you. If you choose to really want to improve your life, and if you really want to have control of the, put your hands on both, have both hands on the steering wheel so that you get to manage and move your life in the direction that you want. Also, recall that we can turn on the stress response. Be aware you can turn on the stress response by thought alone. By the way, we are thinking reinforces the very state of the brain and body, which then causes us to think the same way, and the loop goes on and on and on. It's the serpent eating its tail. Long-term high beta produces an unhealthy cocktail of stress. Some people are addicted to that cocktail of stress, the high cortisol. It's like hitting the overdrive button on your adrenal glands so that you have that constant stress state. Some people are addicted to that state, which can tip the brain out of balance like a symphony orchestra out of time. Parts of the brain may stop coordinating effectively with other areas. Entire regions work separately and in opposition, like a house divided against itself. The brain no longer communicates in an organized, holistic fashion. So in essence, your brain is actually disconnected from you. The left and the right hemispheres of the brain are not firing and wiring synced properly together. I was just talking to somebody earlier today who I was treating for pain in the body, and we were discussing how your brain can be what we call homolateral, where instead of typically in a healthy person, the way your brain healthily functions, the energy crosses over from the right to the left side of your body. But if it doesn't cross over, then your energy is homolateral, and that goes, you're out of balance. It puts your body in a state of unrest and being out of whack, and it throws a lot of your systems off and also drains your energy. It's very debilitating. It could give you chronic fatigue. It could give you all sorts of other conditions. So as the stress chemicals force the thinking brain neocortex to become more segregated, we may function like someone with multiple personality disorder. Only we're experiencing it all at once instead of one personality at a time. So of course, when disorderly, incoherent signals from the brain relay erratic mixed electrochemical messages through the central nervous system to the rest of the physiological systems, this puts the body out of balance, upsetting its homeostasis or equilibrium, and setting the stage for disease. And remember, disease is just a state of being not at ease. Dis-ease. So if we live in this high stress mode of chaotic brain function for extended periods, the heart is impacted, leading to arrhythmias or high blood pressure. Digestion begins to fail, causing indigestion, reflux, and related symptoms. And immune function weakens, resulting in colds, allergies, cancer, rheumatoid arthritis, and more. So I want you to pay close attention to this paragraph that we just read. For those of you who have a book, and I would hope that all of you by now have purchased the book, you need to get the paperback, and you need to get, like I said, you need to get not one or the other. It's both and. Page 194. I want you to think of this in context. Think about yourself, the position that you hold right now, where we are in this world as of the day that you're listening and studying this, and pay attention to what it says here. If we live in this high stress mode of chaotic brain function for extended periods, the heart is impacted, leading to arrhythmias or high blood pressure. Digestion begins to fail, causing indigestion, reflux, and related symptoms. And immune function weakens, resulting in colds, allergies, cancer, rheumatoid arthritis, and more. It basically makes you susceptible to any disease or syndrome. So you have germ-based disease, viral-based disease, bacterial-based infections. All three of them are types of infections. You have allergies. You have malfunctions of systems of the body, also known as syndromes. And then you also have other systemic disorders, multiple sclerosis. We can go on and on, muscular dystrophy. The list goes on and on. But it goes on to include here even colds and allergies. And of course, it talks about cancer. And the one common denominator with all of these is that your body is in a state of not being at ease. It's in a stress state. It's in an internally inflammatory state of being. By the way, when you have allergies, one of the things that is inherent to an allergic reaction is your brain. As soon as your brain comes in contact with an allergen, something that it is perceiving to be a hostile foreign agent, it immediately, the frontal part of your brain, releases antihistamines in reaction to that foreign agent. And it creates an allergic reaction to fend itself and to neutral. It's a desperate attempt to homeostasis in the body so that you can still be around that agent and still not completely shut down. So, of course, an advanced allergic reaction, your body actually does shut down. Ultimately, we won't get into the details of that, but I think we're all familiar with the nuances of a mild, medium, or a severe allergic reaction. So all of these consequences stem from an unbalanced nervous system that is operating incoherently due to the action of stress chemicals and high-range beta brain waves, reaffirming the outer world as our only reality. So sustained high beta makes it hard to focus on our inner self. Sustained high beta makes it hard to focus on our inner self. That's your red flag, to focus on your inner self when it's most difficult. It seems counterintuitive. It's when you have that sustained high beta state that you're operating from your first, your second, or your third energy center more than ever. You have to hit the pause button, slow down your heart rate, slow down your breath, and slow down your brain waves so that you can get into that heart and that brain coherence so that you can get that internal order again and you can stop that stress response. You can stop the emotions, the reactions of fear, anger, worry, shock, grief, disdain. I'm going to even say, friction or fighting against, resistance, all of that. The stress I've been discussing is a product of our addiction to the big three. The problem isn't that we are conscious and aware, but that our focus in high beta is almost exclusively on our environment, people, things, and places. So our body parts and functions, I'm hungry, I'm too weak, I want a better nose, I'm fat compared to her, and time, hurry up, the clock is winding down. In high beta, the outer world appears to be more real than the inner world. Our attention and conscious awareness primarily focus on everything that makes up the external environment. Thus, we identify more readily with those material elements, and we criticize everyone we know. We judge the way our bodies look. We're over-focused on our problems. We cling to things we own out of fear. We busy ourselves with places we have to go, and we're preoccupied with time. That leaves us little processing power to pay attention to the changes that we truly want to make, to go inward, to observe and monitor our thoughts, our behavior, and our emotions. It's difficult for us to focus on our inner reality when we are over fixating on our outer world. In general, we can't concentrate on anything other than the big three. We can't open our minds beyond the boundaries of our narrow focus. You see the problem? Our focus is so myopic. It's short-sighted. And we obsess about problems rather than thinking about solutions. So why does it take such effort to let go of the external and go within? The brain isn't high beta, or the brain in high beta can't easily shift gears into the imaginary realm of alpha. Our brainwave patterns keep us locked into all of those elements of our outer world as if they're real. So when you are stuck in high beta, it's hard to learn. Very little new information can enter your nervous system that is not equal to the emotion you're experiencing. You can hit the pause button. When your brain is in that high beta brainwave state, and it's like, you see the waves, if you're looking at an EEG and you're hooked up to an EEG, electroencephalogram, your brains are like going nuts like this. And make no mistakes, there's not a lot of blood going to your heart. Anything from your heart up is blood deprived. All of the energy is being pulled from all of your extremities, from your hands to your feet and your legs. From here, it's all being pushed down to your first, your second, and your third energy center. That's why people have a bad gut feeling, or they feel lightheaded, or they feel like they're going to pass out, or they just have an uneasy sensation because all the blood is being pulled from all the areas of the body, and it's now just being focused at the base of your spine, at your perineum, your first energy center, then your second energy center, which is 2 inches below your navel, and your third energy center, which is your solar plexus, which is right in your gut, 2 inches above your navel. So this is not a time for growth and repair. This is your body is preparing to fight or flight, to either have a burst of energy to fight or to bolt, to take off somewhere. You see what I'm saying? So, and if you keep that for a sustained period of time, it's no wonder that you become susceptible to disease, to infection, to all of these different things. You don't have any energy to balance your body and for growth and repair. So the truth is, the problems you're so busy analyzing can't be resolved within the emotion that you're analyzing them. Why not? Well, your analysis is creating higher and higher frequencies of beta. Thinking in this mode causes your brain to overreact. It's hyperactive. You reason poorly and think without clarity. So you're making poor judgments, poor decisions. This is when people are making the most ridiculous mistakes out of fear, without mental clarity, without being balanced. Sometimes they're destroying their lives. And many people do this over and over and over. They do it over and over again, whether they're single or whether they're in relationships, sometimes destroying many, many relationships because they don't see the pattern that they are in, that whenever they are in stress, they freak out. And you've heard of the runner, people who flee as soon as things get a little challenging, which is also a sign of immaturity, no doubt. No question about it. Somebody who's balanced, who's mature, is a little more masterful of their emotions. People who have not mastered their emotions at all, they're always running. So in view of these emotions that grip you, you're thinking in the past and trying to predict how futile, and trying to predict the next moment based on the past, and your brain simply can't process the present moment. You're everywhere but in the present moment, which is the most powerful place you can be in, is in the now. And you're everywhere but in the now. Think about it. That's a really sad place to be in. But if that's been you, the good news is you're aware enough to be here at this point in time. You're already taking steps in the right direction. So that's the good news. You're on your way to improvement. So there's no room for the unknown to show up in your world. You're feeling separate from the quantum field. Can't even entertain new possibilities for your circumstances. Your brain isn't in creative mode. It's fixated on survival, preoccupied with the possible worst case scenarios. Guess what? Energy goes where your attention goes. So if you're preoccupied with the worst, case scenario, and you're adding the elevated emotion of fear, I can guarantee that whatever it is that you're worried about, that's what you're going to pull into your existence. You're going to lose that job. You're going to lose that relationship. You're going to lose that money. And the more you worry about all those things, because that's what we're talking about, attention, energy goes where attention goes. So it's like you're giving yourself the royal flush. So again, not much information will be encoded into the system that is not equal to the emergency state. Now, bear in mind, this is what Dr. Joe is saying, and I 100% agree with him here. Not just because he's saying it, but because of all the other scientific research that is in support of this same work. Dr. Bruce Lipton, the father of modern day epigenetics. We have Greg Braden, another physicist. I mean, the list is extensive. We've got the Heart Math Institute. It goes on and on and on and on. So when everything feels like a crisis, your brain makes survival the priority. Whether your surviving is real or imagined doesn't make any difference. If your brain thinks that it's in survival, it believes that it's in survival. And for all intents and purposes, that is reality, even though it may not, in fact, be the case. So everything feels like a crisis, even if it really isn't. But if your brain believes it to be, it is. Your brain makes survival the priority, not learning. So a brain in that state cannot learn. So you're probably going, oh crap, Lillian. And excuse me if for some of you crap is offensive. I apologize, but the word did what it was supposed to do, which is grab your attention. If you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have been in a state of crisis, I've been in fight or flight, I have been in this trying to make things work, and I'm just like barely treading water, I'm in a sink or swim type of situation. The good news is that today you can turn that around and you can start to feel better by just starting. If you just do the Go Love 20, the Go Love 20 meditation, it's only 15 minutes long. You don't have to do a very long meditation. Just doing Go Love 20 right before you go to sleep. Pick somebody. And if you don't know who to pick yourself. Pick yourself as a child and broadcast all that love to you as a child. And then broadcast that love when you get up in the morning to you as that future self that you are creating, that you are excited and thrilled about because you are conditioning your body to that new mind and body. So project unconditional love and broadcast love. Take those 15 minutes to broadcast it to you. And then broadcast that love to your loved ones, whoever they may be. Or you can pick random friends on Facebook, ask them if they've been affected by Go Love 20, and just start to unconditionally sharing that with people, and be ready to see some pretty awesome things. And you're going to start to see a change in your life. You just have to do it. The answer lies outside the emotions you're wrestling with and the thoughts you're overanalyzing, because they keep you connected. Those emotions are what keep you connected to your past, the familiar and the known. Solving your problems begins with getting beyond those familiar feelings and replacing your scattered focus on the big three with a more orderly mode of thinking. So high betas, incoherent signals, produced scattered thoughts. So as you can imagine, when the brain is in high beta and you're processing sensory information involving the environment, your body and time, that activity can create a bit of chaos. So along with understanding that the electrical impulses in your brain occur in a certain quantity, cycles per second, it is also important to be aware of the quality of the signal. Just as the discussion of quantum creating showed how vital it is to send a coherent signal into the field to indicate your intended future, your future outcome, the same coherence is essential to your thinking and to your brain waves. So at any one time, when you're in the beta range of frequencies, one of the big three will have more of your attention. If you're thinking about being late, Your emphasis then is on time. That thought is sending a higher frequency wave through your neocortex. Of course, you're also aware of and therefore sending electromagnetic impulses related to your body and the environment. It's just that in case of the latter two, you're sending different wave patterns with a lower frequency through the neocortex. So your time-focused brain waves might look like this. So if you have a book, I'm not going to show them here on YouTube because I want you to buy the book. You don't want to cheat yourself. You're not cheating me. You're not cheating Dr. Yo. You're cheating yourself if you don't invest the cost of the paperback book at the very least, or the Kindle version or iPad version, then you're just cheating yourself. You're not really serious about it's 10:10 right now. That's another sign. It's cheating yourself. You're not cheating anybody else. You're never going to get better because you're not willing to do the very basic, which is be empowered with the information. So you're going to see he draws here, your time-focused brainwaves might look like this, and he has a diagram of what that looks like. Your environment-focused brainwaves might look like this, and he has a different diagram. And your body-focused brainwaves might look like this. And so he has another little picture you'll have to look up in your book. Your fractured attention caused by trying to focus simultaneously on all big three would then produce a brainwave pattern that might look like this. And I'll describe it as chicken scratch. That's what it looks like, chicken scratch. So as you can see, those three different patterns together during stress produce an incoherent signal in high beta mode. If you're anything like me, you've had experiences when the last drawing represents how your thoughts felt. Scattered. That's a terrible place to be, but I've experienced that. We all have. So when we are plugged into all three dimensions, the environment, the body, and time, the environment, the body, and time, those three, the brain tries to integrate their varied frequencies and wave patterns that take up an enormous amount of processor time and space. If we can eliminate our focus on any of those, the patterns that emerge will be more coherent. So pay attention what he says here. If we can eliminate our focus on any one of those, the patterns that emerge will become coherent and will be able to better process them. So those are the three. You want to take your attention off of your body, your environment, your body, or time. And that's why Dr. Joe says in his meditations, and he talks about this in the book, you want to be no one, no body, no thing, nowhere, no place, in no time. No one, no body. You don't have an identification. You don't have a feeling of the actual physical body itself during meditation. You are detaching yourself from that, and you're going into the 5D. You're going into the void, into the blackness, into that space. You don't feel time in that dimension. You are you're separate from that. You are one with the one. You're all with that space of being. You're no longer your body. You're not identifying as the person. And you're just that conscious awareness now. So no one, no body, no thing, nowhere. You don't have an identification of being in the room or in the city, state, country that you're in. You are simply out in the blackness, in the void. So no one, no body, nowhere, no thing, no place, and in no time. And you don't feel the passage of time because you honestly have no notion of time. You just are in this now place where you're experiencing, witnessing, focused on things. And you can't perceive, you don't feel time. You can't tell if it's been 5 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, which is why he is able to successfully get us to meditate. I mean, I had never meditated for 4 hours, 38 minutes was the longest meditation that we did. I'd never done it. I'd done a 2-hour meditation before, but not a 4-hour, 38-minute meditation. The only reason why I know that I did a 2-hour meditation is because I normally don't measure the time, but I was up in the mountains once with my boyfriend, and I remember he said, "Holy cow, you meditated for 2 hours." well, we were on vacation, so I wasn't really paying attention to time. So he told me that it had been 2 hours, but I didn't look at the clock, so I didn't know until he told me. I knew that I meditated previous to that, for over an hour, but who cares when it's just you? It's not like, those are egoic things where it's like, what difference does it make? What does make a difference is the outcome of that meditation. Although you're not attached to it. That's part of the secret of being effective in meditation, is like you're not attached to a certain outcome at the conclusion of the meditation. So if we can eliminate or focus on any one of those, the patterns that emerge will be more coherent and will be better able to process them. So in figure 8D, in the first picture, the energy is orderly, organized, and rhythmic. And when energy is highly synchronous and patterned, it is profoundly more powerful. The light emitted by a laser is an example of coherent waves of energy, all moving together in unison. In the second picture, the energy patterns are chaotic, disintegrated, and out of phase. An example of an incoherent, less powerful signal is the light from an incandescent bulb. Awareness, not analysis, permits entry into the subconscious. Awareness. This is showing you the power of just being aware. Being in that state of awareness is very powerful. So here's a way for you to know if you're in beta state. If you're constantly analyzing, I call this being in an analytical mind. You are in beta. So the mind that's always analyzing, we had a saying, I remember when I had my mortgage company, the mortgage bank as well as the real estate company, analysis is paralysis. Because oftentimes people who fail to take action for anything, who are serial, they're serial getting stuck all the time, where they're stuck. There's always a reason to be stuck and not moving forward. And it's because they're analyzing so much that it's paralyzing them. Ladies and gentlemen, friends and gems, you need to get a certain amount of information, and then you need to pull the trigger based on the information. It's either a hell yeah or a hell no. If you're kind of like, for me, it's either a hell yeah or a hell no. If it's something like, if I'm not sure, it's out. Next, moving on. I'm not going to waste my time. I would. No, it's either I have enough information to know, yes, I'm going to take action on this. I'm going to do it. I'm going to have enough information to go, you know what? I'm not quite sure. For me, that's a sign that it's a hell no. It's either a hell yeah or a hell no. In between, lollygagging, dancing along the fence, no. Time is my most precious, non-renewable resource. And if I'm going to invest and waste my life being on the fence about something, being unsure, no. If I'm unsure about something, I get more information and I want to move on. Get enough information, it's like, yes, hell yeah, or hell no, moving on. Next item. I'm not going to be wasting my time, because we have no guarantee that tomorrow will even be here. I know the day that I was born. I have no idea the date that I will pass away. Every day, every moment is a gift. Anytime that I'm staying in that stuck energy is really a blasphemy to myself, not to anybody else, but to myself. It's a waste of my own energy. I have nobody to blame but myself. Can't control anybody else. I can't control all sorts of external environments. So I owe it to myself to get whatever information and then trust my instincts. It's a hell yeah or a hell no. And if I'm kind of like, well, I don't know, that means it's a hell no. I've learned at this point that it becomes a hell no. Next, some people will say, well, maybe you made a mistake. Oh, maybe I'll never know that I made a mistake because I'm moving on and I'm succeeding with other things. So what difference does it make? There's multiple paths to take. There's an infinite number of paths for me to take from here until I shed this meat suit. So I can't worry about all the things that that I either failed to or didn't take advantage of. All I can focus on what it is, all the positive things that I'm moving forward. And I will make course corrections where maybe this is not the optimal choice, but it's good enough choice. I'm still going to get to where I'm going to go, where I want to go, my end goal. So the expression, and then he talks about it here, the expression paralysis by analysis is an apt one here. Well, that's what is happening to us when we live most of our lives in that beta range. The only time we aren't there is when we're sleeping. Then we're in a delta range of brainwave activity. So now you might be thinking, but you said that we needed to be aware. We need to become familiar with our thoughts, feelings, patterns of responses, and so forth. Doesn't that require analysis? Actually, awareness can exist outside of analysis. When you are aware, you may think, I'm feeling angry. When you are analyzing, you go beyond that simple observation to add, why is this page taking so long to load? Who designed this stupid website? Why is it that whenever I'm in a hurry, like now, when I'm trying to get a movie listing, the internet connection is so slow? Awareness, as I mean it to be practiced here, is simply noting, watching a thought or feeling and moving on. So a working model of meditation. So now that we've covered some basics about brainwaves in children and in adults, this foundation will provide a working model. See the next 5 figures to help you understand the meditative process. Let's start with figure 8E on the next page. And thanks to the research into children's brainwave patterns, we know that when we are born, we are completely in the realm of subconscious. So in figure 8E, let this circle represent the mind. When we are born, we are totally subconscious mind, completely. Next, take a look at figure 8F. Those plus and minus signs represent the developing child's mind. So those plus and minus signs represent how the developing child's mind learns from positive and negative identifications and associations that give rise to habits and behaviors. Here's an example of a positive identification. When an infant is hungry or uncomfortable, she cries out, making an effort to communicate in order to get her mother's attention. As the nurturing parent responds by feeding the child or changing her diaper, that infant makes an important connection between her inner and outer worlds. It only takes a few repetitions before she learns to associate crying out with being fed or becoming comfortable. It becomes behavior. So a good example of a negative association is when a 2-year-old puts his finger on a hot stove. He learns very quickly to identify the objects he sees externally, the stove, with the pain he is feeling internally. And after a few tries, he learns a very valuable lesson. So figure 8F. In time, we begin to learn by association through different interactions between our inner world and our outer world through our senses. So in both examples, we could say that the moment the child notices an internal chemical change in the body, the brain perks up and pays attention to whatever it was in the outer environment that caused this alteration, be it pleasure or pain. These types of identifications and associations begin to slowly develop many habits, skills, and behaviors. As you learned somewhere around the age of 6 or 7, as brainwaves change into alpha, the child begins to develop the analytical or critical mind. For most children, the analytical mind usually finishes developing between the ages of 7 to 12 years of age. Meditation takes us beyond analytical mind and into subconscious. So in figure 8G, the line that runs across the top of the circle is the analytical mind, which acts as a barrier to separate the conscious from the subconscious mind. And in adults, this critical mind loves to reason, evaluate, anticipate, forecast, compare what it knows to what it's learning, or contrast knowns and unknowns. So for the most part, when adults are conscious, their analytical minds are always working, and thus they are functioning in some realm of beta brainwaves. So figure 8G, between the ages of 6 and 7, the analytical mind begins to form, and it acts as a barrier to separate the conscious mind from the subconscious mind. And it usually finishes developing somewhere between the ages of 7 and 12 years of old. So now take a look at figure 8H. Above that line representing the analytical mind is the conscious mind, which is 5% of the total mind. This is the seat of logic and reasoning, which contributes to our will, our faith, to our intentions, and our creative abilities. The subconscious mind, which makes up about 95% of who we are, consists of those positive and negative identifications and associations that give rise to habits and to behaviors. So in figure 8H, the total mind is made up of 5% conscious mind and 95% subconscious mind. The conscious mind primarily operates using logic and reasoning, which gives rise to our will, faith, creative abilities, and to our intentions. The subconscious mind compromises our myriad positive and negative identifications, which give rise to habits, behaviors, skills, beliefs, and perceptions. So if you look at figure 8I, illustrates the most fundamental purpose of meditation represented by the arrow. So to get beyond the actual analytical mind, when we are in this mind, we cannot truly change. We can analyze our old self, but we cannot uninstall the old programs and install new ones. Meditation opens the door between the conscious and the subconscious minds. We meditate to enter the operating system, the OS, of the subconscious, where all of those unwanted habits and behaviors reside, and change them to more productive modes to support us in our lives. So I'm going to hit the pause button here, because whatever it is that is your challenge, if you're drinking too much, if you're smoking too much, if you've got prescription or non-prescription drugs that you're taking that you feel that you need them to survive, if you are chronically late, if you have aches and pains, if you are a hothead, you constantly blow your top off. It doesn't take very much to irritate you or to anger you, or if it takes very little for someone to say something to you that will automatically trigger you into depression or into grief or into shame or into sorrow. You know, some people have an unhealthy response to taking an over responsibility for other people's actions and feeling guilt and shame. And they carry the burden of guilt and shame that's not their own. Maybe that's your story. I don't know. But whatever the scenario is, with meditation, you can open the door to the operating system of your subconscious mind through accessing your autonomic nervous system. And then you can create your new personal reality and your new personality. So in figure 8.1, one of the main purposes of meditations is to go beyond the conscious mind and enter the subconscious mind in order to change self-destructive habits, behaviors, beliefs, emotional reactions, attitudes, and unconscious states of being. Meditation takes us from beta into alpha and theta brainwave states. Let's examine how you can learn to change gears and access other brainwave states so you can go beyond your association. So let's examine, one more try here. Let's examine how you can learn to change gears and access other brainwave states so you can go beyond your association with the body, the environment, and time, the big three. You can naturally slow down the high-speed vigilance of the brain and body into a more relaxed, orderly, systemized pattern of brain waves. Thus, it is quite possible to consciously alter your brain waves from that high-frequency beta state into alpha and into theta. You can train yourself to move up and down the scale of brain waves. As you do, you will open the doors to your true personal change. You trespass beyond the common type of thinking that is fueled by reactions to being in survival mode. You are entering the realm of the subconscious mind. So during meditation, you transcend the feelings of the body and are no longer at the mercy of the environment. So all the stuff that's going on out there in the world doesn't matter. It's still going on. Life will continue, but the way you respond with ability to it is going to change. So you are no longer at the mercy of the environment and lose track of time. You forget about you as an identity as you close your eyes. The input from the outside world is reduced, and your neocortex has less to think about and analyze. Doesn't that sound like a relief? And as a result, the analytical mind begins to become subdued, and electrical activity in the neocortex quiets down. That's what gives you the sense of peace. And you have that heart and that brain coherence, and you do have that inner peace. So then when you restfully pay attention, you concentrate and focus in a relaxed manner, you automatically activate the frontal lobe, which reduces synaptic firing in the rest of your neocortex. Therefore, you lower the volume to the circuits in the brain that process time and space. This allows your brain waves to naturally slow down to alpha. Now you are moving from a state of survival into a more creative state, and your brain naturally recalibrates itself to a more orderly, coherent brainwave pattern. Just the thought of that, doesn't that feels good? It's like a dream come true. Can you imagine? You actually have the wherewithal. You now are being equipped and empowered with the tools to get into heart and into brain coherence. That is supposed to be your natural state of being. So one of the latter steps of meditation, if you keep practicing, is to move into the theta wave frequency when your body is asleep, but your mind is still awake. This is magical land. You are now in a deeper system of subconscious. Yeah, you are now in a deeper system of the subconscious and able to immediately change those negative associations to more positive ones. And it's important to remember that if you have conditioned the body to become the mind and your body is somewhat asleep while your mind is awake, you could say that there is no more resistance from the body-mind. In theta, the body is no longer in control, and you are free to dream, change some subconscious programs, and finally create from a totally unobstructed place. So once the body is no longer running the mind, once the body is no longer running the mind, the servant is no longer the master, and you are working in a realm of true power. You are like a child again, entering the kingdom of heaven. To sleep, perchance to go down, then up the ladder naturally. When you go to sleep, you pass through the spectrum of brainwave states, from beta to alpha to theta to delta. Likewise, when you wake up in the morning, you naturally rise from a deep delta, deep sleep state, to theta to alpha, till you're fully awake in beta, returning to conscious awareness. So when you come to your senses from the netherworld, you remember who you are, the problems in your life, the person sleeping next to you, the house you own, where you live, and presto, abracadabra, by association, you're back in beta as the same you. Some people fall very quickly through these levels like a steel ball dropping from the top of a building. Their bodies are so fatigued that the natural progression down the ladder to the subconscious states happens too rapidly. Others cannot shift, gears to naturally progress down the ladder into sleep. They are hyper-focused on their cues in their lives that reinforce their addictive mental and emotional states. They become insomniacs and may take drugs to chemically alter the brain and sedate the body. I, that seems so sad to me. You know, if you have to reach for something to go to sleep, that is not a good habit to begin. So either way, sleep problems may indicate that the brain and the mind are out of sync. However, if you find yourself in that position where that's what you have had to do, one of the things that I will let you know is that it doesn't matter, because through meditation, this infinite source intelligence, this power that is greater than us, when you enter it in 5D and you start to deal with it and you start to mold the waveforms of energy, it is so intelligent that it can get around whatever chemical it is that you've put into your body. It can get around it and it can still bring your body into a place of homeostasis. And make no mistakes, the moment that you are healed, you will know. Even if you question it, it will be confirmed to you, because every person that I've talked to that has gone through this healing has had that experience where it's like they were thinking, I think I was healed. Was I really healed? And then in due time, it was confirmed. They knew without a shadow of a doubt they were healed. And then they were able to stop whatever the medication was. So the best times to meditate, morning and evening, when the door to the subconscious opens. So as a result of normal daily changes in brain chemistry, alternately, the brain produces serotonin, primarily a daytime neurotransmitter, that makes you alert, and melatonin, the nighttime neurotransmitter that begins to relax you for sleep. There are 2 times when the door to the subconscious mind opens: when you go to bed at night and when you wake up in the morning. So it is a good idea to meditate in the morning or the evening, because it will be easier to slip into a state of alpha or theta. I like to wake up early to begin the process, because while I'm still a bit dreamy, I'm still in alpha. I personally like to create from a clean slate. Others prefer the late evening. They know that the body, which was in control during the day, is now too tired to be the mind. So they can create without any effort by drawing out the alpha phase and even entering into theta while they are still awake. So meditation during the middle of the day might be difficult, especially if you work in a busy office, manage a house full of kids who demand your undivided attention, or are involved in activities that require heightened concentration. At such times, you might be in the middle to high beta, and it may take more effort to slip through the door. So in figure 8J, this diagram shows how our brainwave functions move from the highest and fastest state of activity, beta, to the lowest, delta, the deep sleep. Please note that alpha serves as the bridge between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The lower, slower the brain waves, the more we are in the subconscious mind, and the higher, the faster the brain waves, the more we are in the conscious mind. So taking control of progression into meditation, inward contemplative practices retain the mind, body, and brain to become present instead of being stressed in anticipation of some future event you are obsessing about. Meditation also shifts the anchor of the body-mind out of the past and frees you from the emotions that keep you hooked into the same familiar life. The object in meditation is to fall like a feather down from the top of a building, slowly and steadily. You first train yourself to let your body initially just relax, but keep your mind focused. Once you begin to master that skill, the ultimate goal is to let your body fall asleep while your mind stays awake or active. Here is the progression. If waking consciousness is beta, from low to high, depending on your levels of stress, once you sit up straight to keep your spine erect, you close your eyes, you take a series of conscious breaths and go inward. You will naturally switch from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system. And you will change your physiology from the emergency protection system, fight or flight, to the internal protection system for long-term building projects, for growth and repair. So as the body relaxes, your brainwave patterns will naturally begin to move into alpha. So, and if done properly, meditation will shift your brain to a far more coherent and orderly wave pattern. So you will go from focusing on the big three to becoming no body, no thing, no time. And now you begin to feel connected, whole, and balanced. And you experience healthier, elevated emotions of trust, joy, and inspiration. So now orchestrating for coherence. If our definition of mind is the brain in action or the brain's activity when it processes different streams of consciousness, then meditation naturally produces more synchronized, coherent states of mind. So on the other hand, when the brain is stressed, its electrical activity will be like an entire orchestra of musical instruments playing badly. The mind will be out of rhythm, out of balance, and out of tune. Your job is to play a masterpiece. If you persist with this band of disorderly, egocentric, self-important members who think that their individual musical instruments need to be heard above all others, and if you insist that they work together and follow your lead, there will come a moment when they will surrender to you as their leader and will act as a team. This is the moment when the brain waves become more synchronized. Moving from beta into alpha into theta, more individual circuits start communicating in an orderly fashion and process a more coherent mind. Your awareness shifts from narrow-minded, over-focused, obsessive, compartmentalized survival thinking to thoughts that are more open, relaxed, holistic, present, orderly, creative, and simple. This is the natural state of being we are supposed to live by. Take a look at coherence, or what is also called synchrony, the state when the brain is working in harmony. Figure 8K. So in the first picture, the brain is balanced and highly integrated, and several different areas are synchronized, forming a more orderly, holistic community of neural networks working together. And in the second picture, this brain is disorderly and imbalanced. Many diverse compartments are no longer working as a team, and thus the brain is diseased and disintegrated. So the coherent brain sets the stage for healing. So this orderly, new, synchronized signal to the body from the brain organizes all of the diverse systems into homeostasis: the cardiovascular system, digestive system, immune system, and so on. All move into coherence as well. As the nervous system recalibrates itself, all of the enormous energy that was needed for survival can now be used for creation. The body begins to heal. So for example, Jose, a man at one of my lectures, told me about one of his first times doing a meditation back in his 20s. And in those days, he had 10 olive-sized warts on his left hand. He was so embarrassed by them that he often hid that hand in a pocket. So one day, someone gave Jose a book on meditation. The book instructed him to simply focus on his breath and allow his mind to expand beyond the barriers of his body. So one night before bed, he decided to try the process. In a matter of moments, he went from an over-focused, contracted state to a more expanded, open, focused state. And as he vacated his familiar personality, in other words, he left his body, and became something other than his typical thoughts and feelings, he went from the habitual random thought patterns driven by the familiar ego to a more expanded sense of self. When this occurred, something shifted. So I want you to take a moment right now and imagine that you are on the most beautiful boat that you have ever seen. It's pristine white, and maybe it has hints of turquoise lettering on whatever the name of your boat might be. And you are in this beautiful, clear, pristine water in some exotic island, some unnamed island, someplace on the planet. Doesn't matter where it is, but the water is crystal clear blue. And as you're sitting there, you're breathing in the ocean air and you're exhaling, and you are seated comfortably and perfectly in your seat, both feet down, no legs crossed, nothing's crossed. Your hands are on your lap. And you take 10 deep breaths in. You inhale as slowly as you can, bringing the focus from the base of your spine all the way to the top of your head. You hold, let's say you inhale on a count of 6, hold for a count of 6, and then you exhale. And then you repeat this a second time. And hold and exhale. And as you're doing this process, you cycle through, you do 6 inhalations and 6 exhalations. And when you reach the 6th one, you are now in the stillness, where as you keep your eyes closed, you're just seeing this pitched black darkness. And as you are in this darkness and you are in this void, you see the blackness. You are now no one, nobody, no thing, nowhere, no place, in no time. You are one with the one. You are the one. You are one with this space. The space is you and you are the space. You are the awareness of this space. And you feel this tremendous sense and feeling of just absolute peace. You are no longer feeling your body. You are not bound by your body. You are not in bondage with your body. You are free from your body now. You don't feel your hands. You don't feel your feet. You don't feel your shoulders. You don't feel your head. You are simply the awareness that witnesses that black space, that black void. And as you stay in that black space, in that black void, you notice a light far off diagonally from you to your right. And so you look over to the right and you start to move in the direction of that light. And as you are more aware of that pinpoint of light, you notice that that light has gotten a little bit bigger, bigger and bigger and bigger. It's now the size of a tennis ball, growing to the size of a volleyball, now the size of a basketball. And you're drawn to that light. And in recognition of witnessing that light, you recognize that you are pure awareness and you're just witnessing this now. You are not the body that is named you. You are simply this awareness that is now having this experience that has traveled in this realm, moving in the direction of this light. Okay, and slowly we are now going to return. As we open our eyes, do you feel the sense of peace and the sense of calmness that you have just from that ever so brief meditation? I don't know how long it took. I'll have to, when I review this, I'll be able to determine how long it took. But it wasn't very long. And on purpose, it wasn't very long, just to show you how you can release yourself from yourself with very little time, with very little effort. So he talks about here, when he did what we just did, when this occurred, something shifted. So the next morning when Jose woke up, all 10 warts had completely vanished. Shocked and overjoyed, he looked under the sheets for evidence of them, but found nothing. He explained that he didn't know where the words went. I told him that they returned to the quantum field where they came from. I suggested to him that the universal intelligence that keeps order in his body naturally had done what it always does, create more order to reflect more coherent mind. So when his new subjective coherent mind matched the objective coherent higher mind, that greater power within did the healing for him. And all of this happened because when he got out of the way and became nobody, no thing outside of time, when he forgot about himself, his focus went from sustained disorder to sustained order, from survival to creation, from contraction to expansion, incoherence to coherence. Then the unlimited consciousness restored order in his body, and he was healed. Did you catch the nuance that he had to stop fighting himself? He had to stop being embodied as a conscious awareness, stop being inside his body, stop thinking the thoughts that he normally thought, and just go into this space. He just needed to go visit the 5D quantum realm, go into the void, release the body of who he was, and just enjoy being in that space and being in that allowing state, just enjoying being one with the one, where he is no one, nobody, no thing, nowhere, in no place, and in no time. Just by visiting that place and being in that allowing state for a little bit of time was enough for his autonomic nervous system and for that infinite source intelligence to come in and release the disorder that was within him. Just that little visitation was enough to bring him back into coherence. So he was no longer disorderly. He got into the rhythm of the coherence. That's all it took. And that's all it's going to take for you too. Meditation plus action, one woman's path out of lack. So at my workshops, I frequently ask participants to share their surprising stories of life changes. Monique, a therapist from Montreal, Quebec, recently described her own remarkable experience. So for most of her adult life, Monique had lived unconsciously in a near constant state of lack. Not enough money, not enough energy, not enough time to do things that she wanted. Now she was going through a particularly rough patch. Her office rent had risen considerably. Her house couldn't accommodate an office. She and her husband couldn't afford to send her son to the college of his choice. Their washer needed replacing. The shaky economy had forced several clients to stop seeing her. One day, while doing the meditation you will learn in this book and pondering her life choices, Monique realized that she couldn't keep doing what she had normally had done. Hunker down and weather the storm with a pseudo positive, woe is me, but things could be worse mentality. She recognized that she had always made decisions or sought solutions or problems from a perspective of lack of time, lack of money, lack of energy. She had memorized that state of being, lack. That became her personality. The epitome of inertia. She tended to let the chips fall where they may. Ironically, Monique had worked with her clients to overcome these very traits and to be more proactive and less reactive. So with great resolve, she decided to change her personality. Imagine that. No longer would she let life trample her and allow things to just happen to her. Next, Monique created a template of who she wanted to be, how she wanted to think, what she wanted to feel. She imagined herself as a woman who made all of her choices with an abundance of energy, time, and money. Most important, her goal to become this person was as firm as her vision was precise. She knew who she no longer wanted to be, and she had definitive plans for how her new self would think, feel, and behave. When we make a decision that strongly and have a clear intention for what our new reality will be like, the clarity and coherence of those thoughts produces corresponding emotions. As a result, our internal chemistry changes. Our neurological makeup is altered. We prune old synaptic connections. That means pruning. And sprout new ones. And we even express our genetic code differently. So Monique began to live her life from the perspective of someone who had plenty of money, who had abundant energy, and whose every need was met. She felt wonderful. Certainly not all of the problems from her catalog of worries went away, but she was becoming better at living from a different mindset. So several weeks after making that firm decision, Monique was working with her last client of the day. This woman who had grown up in France reminisced how every month her parents had purchased a ticket in the French lottery, a tradition that she had continued. As Monique drove home that evening, she wasn't thinking about the lottery. She'd never played it, believing that with her limited financial resources, such an expenditure was frivolous. Stopping for gas, she went inside to pay, and there on the counter were lottery cards for various games. On impulse, recognizing that the new Monique, who lived in abundance, could afford to take a chance on winning, she purchased a ticket. By the time Monique had stopped at a local pizzeria for a carry-out dinner and arrived home, the lottery had slipped her mind. Grabbing the pieces, she discovered that some grease had soaked through the box, stuck the lottery card, and stained the passenger seat. So she set the box on the dining table with the ticket alongside it. She told her family to start eating without her and that she'd be in the garage tending to the grease stain. While she was scrubbing away, her husband came running out. "You won't believe it. Your lottery ticket was a winner." Now, you'll recall that when the quantum field responds, it does so in a way that one couldn't predict. Perhaps you're thinking, of course, she won millions and lived happily ever after. Well, not exactly. Monique won $53,000. Was she happy? Astounded is more like it. The couple owed exactly $53,000 in credit card and auto loan debt. So Monique relayed her excitement in telling us that story. But she slyly admitted that next time, instead of holding the intention that all her needs were met, she'd choose to imagine they were met and then some. You know what Monique's story illustrates is the power of creating a new state of being. She couldn't do that just by imagining that she was a new person. She had to put that new self into action. The old Monique wouldn't have bought the lottery ticket. Her new personality, because the new Monique developed a new personality who seized opportunities and acted differently. She experienced new and better results in her life. New personality, new personal reality. You don't have to win the lottery to change your life, of course, but you do have to make the decision to stop being your old self. Enter into the operating system where those unconscious programs exist, and then formulate a clear design for a new one. So the coherent brain, taking it to the streets. So before I wrap up this chapter, I want to bring up a subject I referenced in Evolve Your Brain, namely Buddhist monks who were studied at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. These super meditators could go into a state of coherent brainwaves well beyond what most of us are capable of. When they meditated on thoughts of loving kindness and compassion, the coherence of the signal they were putting out was nearly off the charts. So every morning during the study, they meditated while researchers monitored their brainwave activity. After that, they were sent out onto the campus and into town to do what they wished, visit museums, go to shops, or what have you. So after they returned to the research center, they underwent brain scans again without first going back into meditation. Amazingly, despite not meditating throughout the day and being subjected to the incoherent, chaotic signals that the external world exposes us all to, they maintained the same coherent brain pattern they had achieved during meditation. So most of us, when faced with the profusion and confusion of the stimuli that the external world produces, retreat into survival mode and manufacture the chemicals of stress. So those stress reactions are like disruptors that scramble the brain signals. And instead, our goal is to become more like those monks. So if we can produce coherent signal patterns, those synchronous waves every day, we'll find that this coherence of signal manifests into something tangible. So in time, if you can repeatedly create internal coherence, like those monks did, you too may walk into the external environment and no longer suffer the self-limiting effects of this disruptive stimuli. And because of that, you won't experience the knee-jerk reactions that formerly forced you to return to the old familiar self that you are so eager to change. By persisting with the meditation and creating coherence within, you will not only remove a lot of the negative physical conditions that plague your body, but you can also progress toward the ideal self you've envisioned. Your inner coherence can counteract negative reactionary emotional states and allow you to unmemorize the behaviors, thoughts, and feelings that make them up. Once you've got into a neutral, empty state, it is far easier to engage a heightened one like compassion. It is easier to bring up and bring in pure joy or love or gratitude or any other elevated emotional state. That's true because those emotions are already profoundly coherent. And when you've moved through the meditative process and produce a brainwave state that reflects this purity, then you will begin to overcome the body, the environment, and time, which once produced your self-limiting emotional states. They will no longer control you. Instead, you will control them. Now, having embodied knowledge, you are prepared for experience. So you have now equipped yourself with the knowledge necessary to move on to the meditation discussed in part 3, with full understanding of what you will be doing and why. So remember that knowledge is the forerunner to experience, and all the information you have read has been put there to prepare you for an experience. Once you learn to meditate and apply this to your life, you will begin to see feedback. In the following section, you will learn how to put all of this into practice and begin to take measurable changes in any area of your life. I'm reminded of the 2-stage journey that made many climbers make when they ascend Washington State Mount Rainier, the highest volcano in the contiguous United States, 14,410 feet. Leaving their car at the Paradise Jackson Visitor Center, 5,400 feet. They first trekked to Camp Muir, 10,080 feet. Stopping at this base camp affords them the opportunity to look back at all the ground they've covered, assess what they've learned from the preparation and experience of that hike, receive additional practical training, and rest overnight. This overview can make all the difference when they continue on to undertake the climb of Rainier's majestic peak. The knowledge you've gained has allowed you to ascend to this very point. Now you're ready to apply everything you've learned, and your newfound wisdom should inspire you to forge ahead to part 3, where you can master the skills to change your mind and thus your life. So I invite you to pause briefly, take a look back with appreciation for the information that you've acquired in parts 1 and 2. And if you need to, review any areas you may feel are important. Then join me as you make your final preparation for the meditative journey to your own personal summit. Okay, and that concludes chapter 8. So my friends and gems, there was a lot of information that we covered in this particular chapter. Chapter 8, I would highly encourage you to go back and re-listen to this video, stop, pause it, rewind it, make sure that you grasp the concepts along the way. This is an open online classroom. All you have to do is post your questions here in the comments below, and I'll be more than happy to answer you. I read all of your questions. I do the best that I can to respond back to you all. If you have, again, any questions, comments, or concerns, I'm here to assist you. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe this video. And I'm going to keep it real and say now, ciao for now.